welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast. I am joined here with Tina Dietz, CEO of Twin Flame Studio. Hello, Tina. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Jenna. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Before we dive into the question that I have prepared for you, go ahead and just tell me a little bit about yourself and Twin Flame Studios.
Yes, Journey of a Thousand Steps. The Twin Flame Studios is a company I've owned now for, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary here in 2026. And we originally were most known and are still very well known for producing world-class audiobooks. But we were the first audiobook company in the world to pioneer remote recording and production of audiobooks while still giving a full studio directed experience remotely. So we have produced more than 500 nonfiction audiobooks, about 80% of which are author narrated. And so we bring that whole experience to the table so that, as you know, as we all know in our world, one of our most unique and precious things that we can use is our own voice. And so we've been stewards of, protecting people's voices in the world, helping people get their voice out into the world in new ways. And we've been, basically pioneers in that area. So, and then now in the last year, we've been piloting a new line of business called Podcraft Books, where we are taking the podcast body of work. Most podcasters don't even realize the depth and breadth of the body of work they've created with their podcast content, and using that as the basis to create beautiful, world-class, very consumable, very pithy published books. And so we've been on that journey and finding out so much along the way. But my background is both as a entrepreneur. I'm a therapist by training. I was a business coach for many years. And I've kind of brought all of that to building this company that I love.
I love that. I'm a big audiobook consumer myself, and some of my favorites are memoirs that are narrated by the author themselves. It's just really,
Mhm.
there's something special about hearing somebody's personal story told by them themselves. So
I totally agree. I mean, I had Betty White in my ear just the other day, and I could just listen to her. Um, I always wanted to have dinner with her, never got to, so it's the closest I can get.
I love that. All right, well, let's dive into the questions. The first question I have for you today is a little bit of a build up here. So, you've built your career around helping leaders find and amplify their voices, both literally and figuratively. So, why do you think that voice has become such a powerful medium for building trust and authority today?
There's a really interesting research body of work, speaking of bodies of work, about how the voice conveys authority and the different aspects of the human voice that are associated with trust, with credibility, with not credibility, with the opposite of creating distrust. And early on, as I was developing our work with audiobooks, and I have a background in voice myself as a vocalist, as somebody who's done theater and improv. And I'd always wondered, like, what makes somebody sound like a leader? And I ended up doing a research piece that got published in Forbes on this. And there's such a unique voice print that each one of us has that encompasses not just the way that we say things. How you say something is certainly a factor. The way you say it is another. But we can quite literally analyze from somebody's speech what their thinking patterns are, what their values are, what they find most interesting, what you are excited about, what bores you. All of these things can literally be analyzed from, if you have enough data on somebody's voice, you really can get a very large picture of what a human being is like. And in an age where a lot of things feel very, very out of our control. And of course, we're human beings. We like to be in control when we're not. One of the things that we can control is, what we say, how we say it, what we look to convey, particularly in the world of leadership and business and commerce. I believe very strongly, more than ever, it's our responsibility as leaders, particularly who lead teams and who have the opportunity to touch a lot of people, that we have a responsibility to be out at the forefront and declare what our values are, declare the world that we are creating and that we are saying that we are accountable and responsible for contributing to. And so this is something that plays through, certainly the way that I run my company, but also something that we find very kindred in a lot of the authors that we work with and a lot of the podcasters that we work with, because, but this is certainly something that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. It's a powerful thing.
It is a powerful. I've rendered you speechless. No, it's true. There's a lot of layers to that, and one study that often comes to mind that really blew me away when I first learned about it was there was a study done, it was over a decade ago now, of 792 CEOs, and they were all male. That was the study at the time, but just on the aspect of pitch, they
Yeah,
found that leaders who had lower pitched voices led larger teams, were considered more trustworthy, and their paychecks were bigger on average of $180,000 a year.
that's interesting.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah,
That
that's
is
pretty crazy.
absolutely nuts. And so then there's other, research that's been done longitudinally that we can point to that talk about how women's voices have gotten lower over the course of the 20th and 21st centuries. Are we surprised? No, we are
No.
not. We are not surprised at all. So we have a bias towards lower voices. We also have a bias, in a couple other areas as well when we talk about things like accent. We talk
Yeah.
about perceived gender, perceived ethnicity and background. This is an important place for us as leaders also to consider where we have inherent bias, and we have to step back and actually analyze our reactions to certain voices. Are we reacting to that voice because they're not really credible, or because there's another factor at play that has unconscious bias in the background, and we need to pick apart some background beliefs we might not have even known we had?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've never really thought about consciously. So after this conversation, I'm really interested to see and kind of analyze my own thoughts when listening to people and see if I have like inert reactions to different voices or patterns of speech and stuff. So,
Yeah, check it out. I'd be curious. You have
yeah.
to email me. Let me know what you find out.
I will. Awesome. Well, so Twin Flames Studios pioneered turning podcast content into those professionally published books. So, what inspired that shift originally, and how does that change the way that entrepreneurs and thought leaders think about their content strategy moving forward from there?
Yeah, the content strategy really does come into play even more strongly. Podcasting is a very young industry, and it's gone through tremendous changes just in the last couple of years. And we had this big arc where everyone was podcasting. We've seen this before. Everyone was blogging. Everyone had to have a website. Everyone had to do a thing. Now everybody's doing short video.
Yeah.
There's all these trends that most of us in business, or particularly small business entrepreneurship, will jump onto.
Yeah.
And so podcasting developed as an industry very, very quickly. And now it is going through what we would expect of a young industry, kind of settling into a phase where, we literally had a whole bunch of die-off a couple of years ago of major podcasting companies. And the economics have changed a lot of podcasting. But going back to what we can control as creators and as marketers, there is we're putting so much energy and effort into the content creation of a podcast episode. Um, just the questions that you sent me in advance, these thoughtful questions that are looking to connect with your audience, and how can I as a guest make a difference for the audience that you're serving? That
Yeah.
requires time and energy and effort and expertise. Well, then we put these episodes out there and we might repurpose them for marketing purposes. But what about the body of work that they're actually creating? What about all of the thinking that gets done in each of these episodes? So, both as an entrepreneur, I was like, well, there's so much content here. What if we could analyze it? What if we could pull things out of it? What if we could use it better?
Yeah.
And then in being in the publishing world, I was saying to myself, well, it's hard to create a book. It is really hard.
Yeah.
I've tried, I own a publishing company and I don't have my own book because that's how hard it is.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Shoemakers' children have no shoes. But what's so important is to know that you have this body of work that you really probably haven't taken a look at in a way that allows you to utilize it as a book,
Yeah.
as a thought partner for how do you want to develop further material strategically. Um, there's untold depth in the body of work that you had there. So on the publishing side of things, I was irritated that I was told by my friends and colleagues who are ghostwriters that they'd rather start from scratch than use podcast content to write a book because it's too much data to analyze.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it so happens that my partner, my husband, has been a data architect and a software engineer for 30 plus years. And so between myself and him, we basically developed software and developed in such a way that we are now able to bring in large bodies of work and content, preserve it, keep it safe from large data models,
Yeah.
and also utilize it to write these very, very high quality, world-class published books. And of course, we have humans working with this along the way. It's not just the software by any means, but it has allowed us to actually get into the depths of what's possible in all of this content and utilize it effectively.
That's really cool. I think it's exceptional. There's so much untapped potential in podcasts, and like you said, there's so much work that goes into it, but there's also so much discussed in those episodes that are kind of off the cuff that you might not think of or recognize as valuable in that moment to be able to put in your own book later, but could really lead to something interesting. So having like software that can analyze that and pull that and then bring you back to that and think, oh, that's something that I can really expand on in a book, is really helpful.
It's incredibly helpful. And
Yeah.
it's also, we literally look at somebody, what we call a voice print, and
Yeah.
it is 7 different layers of how you think, what your values are, how do you say things, how do you convey meaning and ideas,
Yeah.
uh, how do how do you come across with your personality? It's very, very detailed, and then we have to go through an editorial process to determine which of those characteristics actually should be preserved in the actual writing and editorial process of the book.
Yeah.
Because the way that I speak here as a guest on a podcast isn't necessarily going to translate well to the written page.
Yeah.
Certain things might, but certain things are not. Like the fact that I haven't done it here so much, but I tend to say absolutely a whole bunch of times. We're not going to have that in a book. So those are some of the things that have to happen in that process. But they're
Right.
very, very valuable in and of themselves for the host to be able to see themselves objectively just from the data. The old saying
Yeah.
goes, you can't see the label of the jar you're in. Well, now you can.
Totally. Yeah. And I was just curious about how you can portray someone's voice and tone and personality from seeing them on video or hearing their voice. Like you said, the voice is just so powerful and translating that onto paper. So yeah, it's awesome that you figured out a way to make that happen.
Yeah, it's a lot more ones and zeros than I definitely would have been able to do
Yeah.
alone. That's for sure. That's for sure. But we're at a really interesting moment in time where we can take very durable structures like relational databases and things that are much more fleshed out like machine learning
Yeah.
and then pair it in strategic ways with large language models and AI and different structures to get the best out of all of those different types of worlds rather than, what I guess what we call AI slop.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to do that, and we have future plans to be able to use these, large bodies of data to then even be able to help entrepreneurs, business owners, organizations advise themselves.
Yeah. I love that.
because you don't even know what you said. So it goes beyond podcasting. We can use blog feeds, we can use YouTube feeds, we can use other bodies of work in addition to podcasts. We're just focused on podcasting right now as we've been refining this beta that we've been over the last year.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start too. Just a lot of
Mhm.
untapped potential there for sure. Well, on the note of voice and authenticity and all of that, so you talk about vocal leadership, which is a really powerful phrase.
Yeah.
So how do you see the connection between how we use our voices and how we show up as leaders, especially in a world that is more and more digital every day?
Yeah, it's tempting in many cases to abdicate your voice as a leader, as a CEO, to over delegate
Yeah.
messaging.
Mhm.
And it requires, just like a really great podcast requires strategy and thinking, coming back and being able to kind of meta-analyze who you are, not as just as a leader individually, but what is the voice of your brand? What is the voice of your company? What is
Yeah.
the voice of your culture? These are all things, if we think about them as outside of ourselves, and if my company was its own entity, we actually did this exercise and it was incredibly helpful. And we gave her a personality and we kind of even gave her her own horoscope and things like that to
That's fun.
help, yeah, to help separate out, for example, my ego from the
Yeah.
purpose of the company. And because we're human and we are self-centered, we can't help it.
Yeah.
It's so easy as leaders to enmesh ourselves with what I want is what the company wants.
Yeah.
And that is not true.
Right.
It's
Right.
not true at all. So, being able to distinguish your voice. And so, when I say vocal leadership, we're talking about a lot more than this, what you're hearing. If you imagine that the human voice and what you hear of the human voice is an instrument, no different than a violin or a
Yeah.
trumpet.
Yeah.
But then inside the music that I'm playing is my thoughts, my beliefs, my values, my lived experience, my past,
Yeah.
any of those kinds of things. That music informs the music and the instrument that I'm playing.
Yeah.
And we really only get to a point of virtuosity when we know how to not only play the music, but to write the music and rewrite that music. When we're able to reflect on and change our beliefs and things like that, if they no longer fit the mission that we have in the world or what we're in service of as leaders. So being able to have the internal conversation and see how it translates to our external conversations, whether it's spoken or written on video, that's where vocal leadership really comes into play and what I'm talking about when I talk about things like vocal leadership.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. I really like that. It followed along very well. Well, we did touch on AI a little bit, but with AI, synthetic voices, rapid changes in audio technology, you see deep fakes and there's so much AI technology to like take somebody's face and clips of their voice and try to sound like them in these videos. How do you see the future of voice-powered media evolving, and what will it take for brands to stay authentic with all of that kind of technology that's invading this space right now?
It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's definitely tricky. For the last couple of years, I've done a state of audio and a synthetic voice article on our website specific to audiobooks because obviously there's a very direct niche that we're talking about
Yes.
there. And I'm excited about AI. I mean, I actually think that what we're doing in the proliferation of technology is really interesting and exciting.
Yeah.
But specific to voice, it really isn't anywhere good enough yet,
Yeah.
90% of the time to fool most people. And it's interesting because voice is one of the few areas where it is actually harder to fool people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is different if you're talking about short form versus long form.
Hmm.
And if you have a phrase or two, you can fool people almost all the time if it's
Yeah.
an AI voice or human voice. If it's an audiobook, you're listening to somebody for 20, 30 minutes. There are artifacts that we're listening in artificial voice that accumulate
Yeah.
in your brain. Like the way that your brain processes information and the way that we take in auditory information, your brain starts to parse and starts to build a case for, is this right or not?
Little red flags.
And little red flags
Yeah.
start to go off. And so
Yeah.
that uncanny valley effect that we hear so much about gets more and more evident over time, which is why long form audio, like podcasts, like audiobooks, are so much harder to fake. And
Yeah.
really, we're not even anywhere there. I have talked with a lot of the bigger AI voice companies, and of course, they want to talk to me all the time because I own an
Yeah.
audiobook house. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you until you can come to me and say, okay, we've added breathing. And every
Ah.
time I bring up
Hmm.
breathing to one of these guys, they're like, what? I'm like, are you serious? The most fundamental human thing, mammalian
Yeah.
thing, is breathing.
Yeah.
Um, but to be quite honest, there's not enough money in it for them.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
don't want to take the technology any further because people are kind of doing what they're doing with it right now.
Yeah.
But I will say, in regards to audiobooks specifically, AI audiobooks do not sell. I have the sales data. It's not my data. It's,
I
national,
know.
international data that's been
Yeah.
collected by people with much bigger fields. AI audiobooks do not sell. The technology is not good enough.
Yeah.
So it's cheap. People think it's easy. I get it. They don't sell, and
Yeah.
people don't want them.
Yeah,
So it's
I know. I'm a huge reader. I like audiobooks, I like physical books, but I know that in the reading space right now, there's a really big anti-AI agenda. And so people are really mad at, Audible and other big names using AI to narrate voices because, it's taking jobs away from human narrators. They don't find it to be like books are very like a very human thing. And so I think that they want to hear a human voice or they don't want AI written books because they don't care about a story that AI has to tell. They want to hear a human story. So it's a really interesting balance there because I do feel like in most industries now, if you're not utilizing AI to some capacity, you're kind of falling behind. But you still have to keep that you know, you don't want that uncanny valley feeling. You do want to be human in this industry. Yeah.
absolutely. I agree. And so when it gets good enough, we're actually interested in being part of that.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bunch of other ethical things that, we can discuss another
Of course.
time.
Yeah.
But right now, if you are considering if business owners were considering using AI voice or a version, one thing is if you have a book and you can narrate your audiobook on your own, like with a company like us,
Yeah.
then you can use those really high quality files to get the best AI clone of your voice possible.
Yeah.
And then just be really judicious about it. If you want to increase accessibility on your website and have a reader in your own voice reading your blog articles, have at you. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually think that's a really good use for accessibility.
Yeah.
But you just have to put a caveat there that, please enjoy, this audio version of it, using my basically my voice double
Yes.
that we created from our audiobook, which I was pleased to do myself. It's
Yeah.
just then it's a generous offer. It's
Right.
not a cop out.
And
And
transparency. I feel
and
like transparency is a
transparency.
huge part of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I don't hesitate if I'm in the New York Times or reading an article and I have the opportunity and I'm doing the dishes or I'm in the car and I
Yeah.
can read an article with somebody's voice. I know it's AI and I know it's the best they can do.
Right.
That's fine. I can
Yeah.
take in that piece of information, but I don't want to listen to a story. I don't want
Yeah.
to listen to a conversation
Yeah.
that is AI generated.
Right.
It's a very different purpose than transmitting information versus being engaged in and basically a pseudo-social relationship with
Yeah.
somebody's personality. It's
Yeah.
a different purpose.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge difference there.
I completely agree. We're both sitting here nodding. Yeah. No, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
just thinking about it. I know. I mean, would sometimes my partner will just be, scrolling on his phone, and I can tell if a video's AI just by hearing it still.
Sure.
Like you said, the technology's not quite there. Like I can immediately be like, why are you watching an AI video? Like what is that? Just across the room, hearing the cadence and the voice is just not quite right.
Oh,
And
that crazy voice that here are 7 ways to find out if you are living with your soulmate. That kind of whole thing.
that's an
Yeah.
excellent
Do you like that?
impersonation. Yeah. But even those short, like quick clips, I know there's like social media is flooded with clips now of I don't know, cats saving babies from bears or just like these
I
wild AI
know.
videos. But it's always the same voice. They're like, "Oh my God, you saved my baby," and you can tell it's trying to sound human. It doesn't sound like a robot, but it's wrong. It's not it's not there.
It's the vocal equivalent of when AI tries to do somebody's hands. Like
Yeah.
there's always like half a finger missing or an extra finger growing out of the back. It's
Yeah.
like it's the audio equivalent of that. Yes.
Yeah, fully agree. Yeah. It is getting better though. I mean,
It is.
it's evolving rapidly. So we'll see how that goes in the next
If
year.
folks spend time on it, and that's the thing,
Yeah.
like they think it's going to be easy, but to produce really the top of the line AI voice right now requires
Yeah.
a lot of time and fine tuning.
Yeah.
And the public doesn't always have access even to those tools. So it's quite fascinating. Even to do something like insert laugh here, it's always the same laugh every time.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's just dumb. Like, that's not how people work. So,
It Not at all. No, I think I have alone like 30 different laughs for different situations that
the
I
laugh
don't
catalog.
consciously
Right.
think of, but
Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Well, I have loved our conversation today. Um, Yeah, I mean, do you have any other topics that you'd like to talk about in this grand sphere of it's a super interesting I've never heard of anything quite like what you're doing with, podcast content and yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. We definitely are looking, I come from a background of a lot of creativity and a lot of entrepreneurship. And at the intersection of that is, my strong desire to leave the world a better place than I found it, hopefully.
I love that.
And I just, I always want authors to know that they don't have to settle to have the book that they want. There's
Yeah.
so many ways that we can use now to extract the ideas and the content to help and not leave people with what I call the tyranny of the blank page,
Yeah.
which I've experienced many times in my life. And if we're in the world of podcasting and using our voice, and we're the type of person that would rather speak perhaps than write,
Yeah.
or doesn't have necessarily the time to sit down and go through like a full writing program. And the other piece of it is that if it's your first book, you really shouldn't be writing your manifesto right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And
That
so
takes
if
some time to build up to.
it's really not necessary to write a full framework how-to book anymore.
Yeah.
People want to be in relationship with us,
Yeah.
leaders, with ideas. If we want to know how to do something, we take a course, we hire someone, we go to YouTube,
Yeah.
we get all those tools together. More and more with books, we want this reflective partnership in our thinking so that, when we are, thinking about what's next to us, we go to these books that are consumable, 30, 35,000 words,
Yeah.
and that guide us and make us feel like we're not alone and help us prepare for what's next in whatever we're creating in our lives.
Yeah.
Those are the books that we're creating from podcasts.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, when I'm reading, if a book makes me cry instantly, it's my favorite book. So I like we crave that human connection. We want to
Yeah.
feel, we don't necessarily want a step one, step two, step three kind of situation. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what the translation of podcast content into book does extremely well.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Well, thank you so much. How can let the people know how they can find you, social media, Twin Flame Studios, LinkedIn.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Twin Flame Studios. You can find us on certainly on Instagram, Facebook, all of that. But just go to our website. Flames and Studios are both plural. And you can also look up Podcraft Books, which is part of our offerings. Voicecraft books are our audiobooks, but they're all under the umbrella of Twin Flames Studios. And if you look up me, Tina Dietz, I'm going to be at the top of Google because I like the sound of my own voice. Uh, and I've been around a while, so happy to connect with folks and find out, how they want to use their voice and the voice of their brand and the voice of their company to do more in the world.
Perfect. And I'll put your links in the description for people to have accessible easily. And thank you so much, Tina. This was a great conversation.
Thanks, Jenna. I appreciate you having me.
Have a good day.
You too.
Before we jump into our next guest, we want to take a moment to tell you about our marketing mastermind cohort, No Typical Marketers. If you are a marketing executive looking to connect with like-minded professionals, this is the space for you. It's more than just a Discord group. It's your exclusive ticket to monthly roundtable meetings where we have group discussions about advanced marketing strategies, share insights, and solve real world challenges like implementing AI agents into your marketing. Membership is exclusive and by application only. If you're ready to take your marketing game to the next level, apply now using the link in the description below. We can't wait to see you there. Now, back to the episode.
Welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast, where I'm joined today with Zachary Bernard, who's the founder of We Feature You. Hello, Zach. Nice to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jenna. Really excited to be here.
Me too. Before we dive into the questions I have for you today, why don't you just tell us a little bit about We Feature You?
Yeah, for sure. So we feature you, started a company back in 2021. We started as a PR firm, and I would say probably like 2 years, 3 years ago, we basically transitioned into like the podcasting world, which I mean, like we're obviously on a podcast now, but we've essentially specialized now in helping entrepreneurs, business owners, etc., get booked on podcasts, really like help build their thought leadership. But we also like produce podcasts for our clients. In some cases, a lot of clients want to start their own podcast. Like, hey, I want to be a thought leader. I want to attract more people. And yeah, we support them with that. And it's been an amazing journey and looking forward to the future for sure.
Awesome. I love that. All right, well, let's dive into the question. So, We Feature You, when I was looking at it, it essentially helps professionals become recognized authorities in their space through, podcasting or whatever else. So, in a world that's flooded with content, what truly separates someone who's known from someone who gets ignored?
That's a very good question. And that's something I really was excited to be able to dive into because one of the things I feel is you have a lot of people that have been in the space for a while. Maybe they've been running a company for 30, 40 years or something like that. And we work with quite a lot of those people where they come to us and like, hey, like I can speak to anything. And directly there, you're like, that's great. You can speak to anything. But at the end of the day, it's more like, what do you want to be known for?
Right.
And the people that understand that they need to be known for one specific thing, as opposed to being known for the guy that's a business owner or like a marketer, they're going to crush. They're going to have a much bigger impact. And the reason is if someone goes on social, they go on YouTube and they're consistently seeing different topics, you talking about different things that are all over the place, you're just like somewhat wondering like, okay, like what does this person do? And
Yeah.
that's where like there's that disconnect where like it's less on brand. And I'm sure you probably heard that advice here, Jenna, as well, where when someone starts a business, in some cases, you're going to be like, yeah, like find a niche and focus on that niche specifically.
Yeah.
And the advice can be good. In some cases, you might go another direction, which is totally fine. But it applies in that same like concept where you need to find one thing or maybe two, three things that you
Yeah.
speak about, that you're an expert about, and only focus on that. Because you want to have that consistency in your message. If people see you, they recognize you, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's the guy that talks about like market, like Martech or like marketing podcasts. So I'd say that's probably like the biggest thing.
Right.
That
It's
is
it's
really
similar
important.
in social media, right? Where
Oh yeah.
people need to know what they're coming to you for. Like you have to nail in on an audience. If you're speaking on so many different broad topics, there's the interest for the audience is not always going to line up. So they don't know
Yeah.
that they don't recognize your page or your podcast or whatever as something that they can continue to come back to for a particular topic. Yeah.
Yeah, because you come back to it, you're like, oh, what are they going to talk about this week? Like, you want
Yeah.
to be able to consistently go to that person and hear the advice you're looking for
Yeah.
versus just stuff that's all over the place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So now, how do you see PR evolving as part of a company's broader growth strategy? So, especially right now, we see so many brands heavily investing in paid and performance marketing instead. So, how do you see that
Yeah.
evolving?
Good question. And I would say that like PR as a whole is more like an amplifier, just like anything else that you're doing. I wouldn't look at PR strictly as like the thing that's going to grow like your entire company. Don't do any other marketing outbound efforts or anything like that. See it more as something that you will integrate within like some of your other efforts. For example, if you're running paid ads, you can use podcasts, you can use media, PR, and stuff like that. Because most often, if you see a Facebook ad or you see an ad what are you gonna do? You're gonna Google that person. You're like,
Yeah,
okay, like I saw 30 seconds of this person promising you the world. Who are they? You're gonna make
right.
a bit of research. You're gonna Google their name. That's usually what most people do. And that's where like podcasts, where PR, media appearances can help to build like another layer of trust and like credibility. But you also do need to use it in like your back and like sales process. One of the things that we always tell clients is like, hey, use the content that you have from the podcast and use that as sales assets that you can send to people that you speak to and everything like that. So
Yeah.
I guess like my advice is don't see PR just as like one thing that you should use and it's going to be, oh, it's going to change the world. Use it as a way to amplify everything else that you're doing. Because one of the things I tell to every client, for example, if we're talking about podcasts, is if you're going to get on podcasts, you're not going to use them. Don't do podcasting. It's going to be a
Yeah.
waste of your time. It's about leveraging them. And I mean, every marketing piece, like you want to leverage your content. And I think that's like really where we're going, where, I mean, video content nowadays is even like more important where
Yes.
like a lot of like the PR like media articles and stuff like that like it's still popular like from what I've seen but people like to connect with other people they like to see video content and I think like podcast for example is going to be even more popular it's going to blow up even more we're going to see so many new podcasts coming out and it's going to be even a more popular medium of consumption at least on socials.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to provide, clips and pull different
Oh
pieces
yeah.
of content. You can even make blog posts out of podcasting, and there's so many things that you can do with that to really nail in that image that you want to portray yourself online. And it's very
Oh yeah.
important. Everything works very cohesively together. Everything complements each other, right? Between
Oh
paid
yeah.
ads and organic social and podcast appearances, it
Yeah.
all blends together.
It's like an ecosystem, to put it
Yes,
simply. That was the word I was looking for, but
that's a
you
great
got
word.
it. I love it.
Okay, well, now let's dive into a little bit about, AI tools because that's a big part of marketing right now and just a big part of the world right now. So, with AI
Mhm.
tools making content creation easier than ever, honestly, how can professionals still stand out authentically and maintain credibility within their messaging?
I love that because I use like I'm a big X Twitter user or whatever you want to call it. And one of the things I consistently see is I'll just scroll down, I'll start reading something. I'm like, okay, this was written by AI. And nowadays, it's become like really so easy. They can just read something like, okay, this was like written by AI. And your automatic thought process is like, okay, this is not authentic. This is not the person actually sharing their thoughts. I'll just skip this.
Right.
Like it just it doesn't make sense. Like I don't like to read AI content. If I'm following someone, I want to hear it from them. And I
Fair
feel
point.
like one of the things
Yeah.
that you have to do when you're using AI, it shouldn't be something that dictates your voice. It should be more something that you use to strategize, ideate, like ideas, things that you want to talk about. Do
Yeah.
market research. It's like find out like, okay, like what topics are popular. And then you want to speak to that. One tool that we use quite often is called Claude, which is starting to become a bit more popular.
It
And I
is.
know
Yeah.
GPT was like the big thing, but Claude recently with Claude Code, and I think they just launched something called Claude Cowork or something like that. It's become much more popular. but we do use it like internally, like really heavily. Like I don't think I go a single day without using Claude. And I think everyone probably uses AI nowadays, where you're probably not going to go a day without using it. But I would say you have to still keep the authentic voice that you have. And
Yeah.
you shouldn't just post stuff from AI. And like a lot of people are just going to use AI to reply to people and like, oh, it's going to grow my account. That's not going to work. But one of the things that we find that works pretty efficiently, you obviously have to play around with it a little bit, is use a lot of the written content that you've already written, use
Yeah.
it within a project, maybe in Claude, GPT, or something like that. And then you can use it to help you write content because it's going to base it off your writing style. But you obviously do have to give it a little bit of an input insight so it actually writes something interesting. But never trust AI to write your entire content.
Right.
You're gonna kill your entire brand.
Yeah.
You want to have that authentic piece, and you want to have yourself in your content. I think to put it very simply.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly I've been hearing that advice a lot lately is using AI more as a brainstorming tool, but make sure that
Yeah,
you're inserting yourself and inserting your own voice into the content that you're creating. So, yeah,
that's a big
I
one.
fully agree. I'm kind of a certified AI hater myself, but I know that you really can't get by without using it to some extent in this current market.
Yeah,
So.
that's fair. No, no hard feelings here. Everyone has their preference with AI, but oh, that's so true.
Well, last question, still on the same vein, here is how is We Future You leveraging AI internally, like within your own systems, whether it's in
Mhm.
content creation, media outreach, client strategy, what impact has that had on how you deliver your results to your clients?
Yeah, I will say that AI has definitely made everything that we do so much more efficient, saved us so much more time. I
Yeah,
think that the main way that we've been using, like strategy, because oftentimes we're going to create a similar framework for the strategy. Obviously, it's going to be case by case applicable based on the client, but we can use AI. We can feed it a lot of the data that we have the client to what has previously worked. And based off of that, we can create a general outline and structure. And then have our team internally go make some adjustment based on the client to ensure like they're relevant. So
yeah,
the strategy piece has been huge because oftentimes strategy that would take us days, we can do it in like 1 to 2 hours. Like that's
yeah.
a big lever pull for
Oh,
us.
yeah.
And then even like transcription. I mean, I know that's like such a small thing, but you were talking about like blog posts like earlier,
Right,
being able to use transcripts of like podcasts to come up with content ideas, to come up with blog post content. It's like so helpful. And if we want to
totally.
create like clips, for example, we don't strictly use AI. And I was on another call with someone and I talked about this like specifically. I don't trust AI to come up with clips from the podcast because what I
Right.
found is oftentimes doesn't find like amazing clips. You can use it to find like timestamps where there's going to be an amazing clip and
Yeah.
then manually go edit it. Like that's the best way that we found it. We do that for every single client. A lot of people are just gonna throw a podcast into an AI repurposing tool and they're gonna use that content.
Yeah.
I don't find that to be like the best way to approach things. But also training your team to use AI. That's like another big thing because like I've been using AI probably 2, 3 years, I would say, like when GPT like first earlier came out. But our team slowly they're starting to use more of it. It's becoming more helpful. And we're starting to give them like, yeah, use this project, use this type of prompt, but also training
Yeah.
them like how to more like critical thinking. Like, hey, if you want to have a like ask AI for like more guidance on this, like do it. It's definitely gonna like help you. And some people, I mean, I know you mentioned yourself, you don't like AI too much. I could be a bit resistant to it. So they'll have to like learn how to use it. And as they get more familiar, they might start using it more. And I feel that's something you also have to integrate within your culture. Because once you get to a point where everyone uses AI, they understand how to use it effectively, it makes your life much easier. And another thing I also love doing is taking all the data that we have, our SOPs and everything, pushing that into AI. And then you can simply ask AI about something specific. It's going to go through your entire SOP
Oh,
and
cool.
resources
Yeah.
you're gonna have much better like value
Yeah.
on makes us more efficient to put it very simply here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's with how quickly AI is evolving now too, it's really important to get on it pretty much right from the start. Like the sooner the better.
Yeah.
So you can evolve with AI's evolution and know how to use some of the newer programs as they're coming out rather than having to relearn everything every time.
Yeah.
So yeah, staying up to date on it is certainly very important.
Oh.
While I am an AI hater, I do use it regularly, and
Okay.
I'm a millennial. I was born and raised with the internet, so I at least have that going for me, and I
Fair enough.
can use it efficiently. But yeah, no, I agree. It's pretty intense and just how much it can cut back on time
Oh yeah.
spent on certain things. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, I love it. So it's a great thing to use. There's pros and cons, different perspective to it, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's a tool for the bad. I mean, I know I had a client a while back that was using AI to find like cancer, like helping find
Oh,
cancer
wow.
research and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I was like, that's kind of cool. There's a lot of different use cases for it,
Yeah, I
definitely.
love hearing about stuff like that. It changes
Yeah.
your perspective a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Love it.
Awesome. Well, those are all the questions I had for you today. But before we go, I'll give you a moment to share any platforms that people can reach you or reach out to We Feature You on. If you have LinkedIn links, whatever, I'll also put it in the description.
I appreciate it. And like before I do that, I would encourage like anyone listening to obviously drop a 5 star. I run my own podcast as well, and I know like how much time that goes into building, running a podcast. So I appreciate having me on and giving me the opportunity to share some information, help educate people. But if you'd like to learn more, want to get in touch with me, always happy to educate people, help people in like any way that I can. Pretty active on LinkedIn. It's Zach B. It's my username. I don't think there's too many Zach Bernard with that username either way. And then wefeatureyou.com is our website if you want to reach out to us. So we'll be happy to chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.